Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another nightly reading. Um, this particular book that I wanted to go through, or the passage from this book, is this is The Experience of God, Being Consciousness Bliss by David Bentley Hart. Um, I love this book. We covered this book at Al-Andalus Book Club a few years ago. And by the way, if you want to join Al-Andalus Book Club and become a member and read books with me and have some live interactions and discussions about some of the texts that we're covering, the book list for 2023, we're going through it now. You can, we did Culture and the Death of God most recently. We're doing AI, readings in AI. As well as various other things there. So if you would like to join the Andalus Book Club, you can go through the description. The link is there. And I'm also doing a weekly halaqa for those of you who are unaware. We're going through Kitab al-Tanwir fi Isqat al-Tadbir, the Book of Illumination by Sidi bin Ata'illah Secondary. We have finished the Hikam, so all the recordings of that are available. And now we're going through another text of his. But anyways, this book, this passage, is quite interesting because it speaks to a modern condition in which the modern world has a sense of disenchantment and why that is. This is on page 312 for those of you who have the book and want to follow along. Late modernity is thus a condition of willful spiritual deafness. Inframed, raked, reduced to machinery, nature cannot speak unless spoken to. And then her answers must be only yes, no, or obedient silence. She cannot address us in her own voice, and we certainly cannot hear whatever voice might attempt to speak to us through her. For what it is worth, though, the age of the great totalitarianisms seems to be over. The most extreme and traumatic expressions of the late modern will to power may perhaps have exhausted themselves. Now that the most violent storms of recent history have largely abated, the more chronic, pervasive, and ordinary expressions of our technological mastery of nature turns out to be simply the interminable spectacle of production and consumption, the dialectic of ubiquitous banality by which the insatiable economic culture of the late modern West is shaped and sustained. And this, I think, is how one must finally understand the popular atheist vogue that has opened so lucrative a niche market in recent years. It is an expression of what a Marxist might call the ideological superstructure of consumerism. Rather than something daring, provocative, and revolutionary, it is really the rather insipid residue of the long history of capitalist modernity, and its chief impulse, as well as its chief moral deficiency, is bourgeoisie respectability. Late modern society is principally concerned with purchasing things in ever greater abundance and variety, and so has to strive to fabricate an ever greater number of desires to gratify and to abolish as many limits and prohibitions upon desire as it can. Such a society is already implicitly atheist and so must slowly be relentlessly apply itself to the dissolution of transcendent values. It cannot allow ultimate goods to distract us from proximate goods. Our sacred writ is advertising. Our piety is shopping. Our highest devotion is private choice. God and the soul too often hinder the purely acquisitive longings upon which the market depends, and confront us with values that stand in stark rivalry to the one truly substantial value at the center of our social universe, the price tag. So it really was only a matter of time before atheism slipped out of the enclosed gardens of academy and down from the vertiginous eyries of high cosmopolitan fashion and began expressing itself in crassly vulgar form. It was equally inevitable that, rather than boldly challenging the orthodoxies of its age, it would prove to be just one more anodyne item on sale in the shops, and would be enthusiastically feted by a vapid media culture nor not especially averse to the idea that there are no ultimate values but only final prices. In a sense, the triviality of the movement is its chief virtue. It is a diverting alternative to thinking deeply. It is a narcotic in our time, to strike a lapidary phrase. Irreligion is the opiate of the bourgeoisie, the sigh of the oppressed ego, the heart of a world filled with tantalizing toys. My God, that's so powerful. I mean, if you think about why the various cultural wars that people are having, and the ideologies that they take, and the splitting into the different camps, and you have to be right or left or whatever have you, and whatever system of beliefs that you hold, and any of that stuff, there is a desire, there's an innate desire that comes from within, that is outside of our control, which is, from an Islamic perspective, we'd say that's the fitra, man. Your fitra is always looking for something transcendent, that is all encompassing, that is all powerful, that you are subject to. And so, because the modern world has done away with God, I mean, that's what Nietzsche said in The Gay Science, the death of God, the parable of the death of God, where he says, we must become gods ourselves. What is that about? He's pointing out that you do away with God, you do away with the church, you do away with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your mind anyways. You're not going to get rid of your internal desire that you need something over you and more powerful. For some, it becomes the state. For others, it becomes their expression, their personal expressions of whatever it is that they feel more value in. For some, it's the political ideology. I mean, Wa'il Hallaq in The Impossible State, the whole argument is basically that the state becomes God, the sovereign, the rule giver, the lawmaker. When we do away with God, we turn to these structures. The problem with these structures is they're not built on anything truly transcendent or about ultimate good. They're built upon human desires for power, for control, for prestige, for acquisition, for material gain. And so a lot of people end up suffering in the process. So there is a consequence, a real material consequence for disbelief that manifests itself. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that that corruption has become manifest in the land and the sea, so that Allah can give them a taste of just a little taste, not the whole thing. Which, that verse is really interesting to me, just as a final thought, because this will just become a whole other subject. The reason there is a debate, or there is a so-called debate, on disagreements between people when they look at the data points about climate change, environmental destruction, all that. The reason there is such a debate is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow for the total manifestation of corruption. Allah allows for a little bit. And because there's only a little bit, the whole point of it is to give us a taste of the corruption that we're sowing, that, hey, you need to step back. But instead, people get drawn up and caught up in all of their little ideological wars and all of that, instead of just thinking, are we doing right by this? Because this is not ours, this is Allah's, and we're just vicegerents. We are the representatives, we are just caretakers. And as caretakers, if you went, I mean, look at an Airbnb. Imagine this entire earth is our Airbnb, and the landlord is Allah. Just to give you an analogy, to give you, when you leave, what is expected of you from an Airbnb, from a rental place? That you leave it trashed? They're going to charge you. Well, what are we doing with this earth? Anyways, that's a whole other subject. Alhamdulillah. These are going to be very random, by the way. So make of it what you will. I'll catch you guys in the next one, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum.